In 1978, the foundation of Ganga Hospital was laid by a couple with the intention of establishing a hospital that would provide every patient the best treatment at affordable cost. Their journey was never easy, but their relentless spirit, determination, and hard work made their dream come true. They preached integrity, ethics, professional and family values by example, which brought trust and confidence to the team and to the patients. Their journey was inspired by simple living and high thinking. Today, Ganga Hospital stands tall amongst medical institutions for its professional and academic excellence. It has placed Coimbatore in the world map of orthopedics and plastic and microsurgery by sheer excellence in clinical work, academics, and research, and caters to more than 30,000 surgeries every year. In addition to providing quality and affordable healthcare, partnering with Rotary, Ganga Hospital does its bit in giving back to the society with projects like Hope After Fire and Rastra. All this was made possible because of the dream of our founders. To celebrate their journey, we instituted the Founders Oration in 2013. I now invite our director, Dr. S. Rajasabhabati, Chairman and Head of Department of Plastic and Reconstructive Microsurgery, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening to all of you. And it's always a great pleasure to welcome all of you to our Founders Oration. And as Sudhan said, this oration was set up to celebrate the journey of our founders. And we have grown from when we started in 1978, it was actually it was 16 beds with 2 operating rooms, to the state now when in 2020 we reached 650 beds with 38 operating rooms. And we feel this is all due to God's grace, good wishes of the people around us, and the teamwork of the entire Ganga family. And I'm sure that this was possible by the blessings of our parents, and it is because of their vision and sacrifices. And actually all the time they put our interest in front of theirs. And most important of all, we feel they taught us the value of the values, for which we are eternally grateful. As times change, we find that these things which they taught us are become more relevant and are more important as times go by. The choice of the orator, and when we set up this oration, we thought that we should get a very eminent person who stands as a very high example of success achieved through hard work, honesty, ingenuity, and social commitment and passion in what they do. I think they will deliver the oration. And we really felt that by their coming and their words, they inspire us and inspire all our people to dream and nurture the institution towards excellence for the benefit of the society. I think that's the which now we started. And we are very fortunate to have had a large string of very eminent people as the orators. We started with one person from the medical side itself. Now we started, the first oration was given by Dr. Devi Shetty, who the topic was, affordable healthcare. And it was inaugurated by our Chief Justice of India, Justice Sadasivan. That's our oration was inaugurated by, the series was inaugurated by him. And the following year, we had the former former Home Secretary and Chief Election Commissioner, Ms. Gopal Swami. He gave a fantastic oration on the governance and the governed as to how the things change with the people and what we get, what we deserve. And in 2015, we had the first of our Tata group people to come in. And it was in the form of Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan, who is Executive Director of Tata Sen. And he spoke on achieving excellence. He set an attitude or a goal. And we had Mr. Krishnan was the chief guest in that occasion. And in 2016, we had Mr. Venu Srinivasan, chairman of the TVS group, speaking on values that build institutions. And we had Ms. Vanitha Mohan as the chief guest. And in 2017, this really coincided with 25 years of our moving over to this center. And we had 2 speakers, both of them very different, and they spoke fantastically well for us. The topic was platform versus purpose. We had Subrata Bakshi, the founder of Mindtree, and Mr. Ramchandra Guha, the historian. And in 2018, we had one from the Tata stable, Mr. Muthuraman, the former chairman of Tata Steel, He spoke us about institutional transformation. And a lot of things he told have been very practical tips which he said which will transfer institutions from good to great. I think it was an extraordinary good oration. And in 2019, it was a change. We had Dr. Abhay Bang, who was a social reformer, is the founder for the Society for Education, Action and Research in Community Health. They had a unique thing because both him and his wife were together awarded Padma Shri for what they were doing for the cause of the tribal people and how we had to reach the masses. And then followed the COVID years, and then we didn't have the oration for the last 2 years. We were extremely happy to begin this again, to restore this oration. And then we were extremely happy to have Mr. Bhaskar Bhat, Director of Tata Sense. And the topic that was given was by him. It was responsible business, ethics and economics. I need to tell you as to how we got this happen. And when this was, we had a 50 years reunion of our school leaving. We studied by students of Kikani High School and we left in 1971. And we had a 50 years batch reunion. And Ooty, I think there's a star there, a fellow with the ball. I think most of us are bald there. Then we had one person, Gopalakrishnan. He worked in as a CFO of the Titan. And while we were talking, I was talking, each one was telling the books they read. We had one boy who was reading Agatha Christie when we were in school and still reading the Agatha Christie books. They were talking about I said I like the Tata's books. And when you were talking about that, Gopalakrishnan said, if you're so mad about the Tatas, I know people whom I could lead to, who would expose the value of the Tatas. He said, because I was near really knowing that he was so close. And then he said, no, if you're reading all these books, then I'll tell you, I'll lead you to a person who could really expose you. I think I'll get you connected. So that's there. And then one day during dining table, my brother and myself were talking, I think we need to get a speaker for this year. And immediately I thought of Gopalakrishnan and sent a WhatsApp to him. Is it possible to get Mr. Bhaskar Bhat? I was very surprised to find that in about 20 minutes he said, Mr. Bhaskar has agreed, the only problem may be the dates. I think that was the only question. I was very surprised how he could come agree within 20 minutes I could get a. That too when I texted him it was about 9 o'clock in the night. And I got the answer this morning when he came, after he got, first time meeting him and I received him in the airport. In the car, I asked him, sir, how did you just accept? I was wondering whether he had any connection with Ganga Hospital anyway. He said, there's nothing, I did not know anything about you. And he said, SDG, he called him SDG. SDG asked me, and he was trying to explain about you, he was trying to tell about you. So I immediately said, SDG, you do not talk about your friend Sabhabadi. What you have to do is that you tell me that I have to go, I will go. That's all. That's what he said. And to me, that was very amazing. And then that tells us more about the person than his capacity of building up a company from $100 million to $16 billion. So that tells you, sir, as a person, how good you are. And then there's the trust of relationships and friendships that you could build over the people. And thank you so much for coming over, sir. And we had a session of 2.5 hours this morning to all our staff members. I think it was truly a tremendous experience for all of us. And even my secretary told this is one of the best meetings we ever had in my service, and he has been working with me for about 15 years. And he said he listens to all the talks, and he said this is one of the best meetings we understood. I asked him, what is the best thing that is there? He said, he's just speaking to us directly, sir. That means he was able to connect with the people. I think that's the most important thing that's there. And one of the things that he told during this morning meeting was, I think somehow we should democratize healthcare. So there was certain things, I caught up with that. And always, he also leaves us some challenges, I think. He used this word, we should democratize healthcare. And it also coincided with what Dr. Devi Shetty, our first orator, said, that India must become the first country to dissociate affluence from the quality of healthcare. So that was the words that were used during the first oration. And the 8th oration, before the oration, I think you have given us again a challenge to us, sir. But I think it should be possible because Ratan Tata has said, I enjoy thinking about impossible things and how I can perhaps actually make them possible. So I can assure you, you said, please democratize healthcare. We'll try to make it possible for the quality healthcare to reach out to the people. And for this day, I think we have Prashant Subramaniam as the chief guest. He heads the CI division right now, and he's been a good friend. And more than that, as you say, you have to dream big and also execute things. And when he started his CI, he said, we'll do the future is the Coimbatore next, and trying to reposition Coimbatore into a great hub from a Tier 2 city, which will have the power of the Tier 1 city. So that has been the thing. So all of us are working hard, sir. So thank you so much for your coming, sir. I'm sure your talk and your presence will inspire a lot of people, at least a few people in the audience, so that they'll always remember this evening forever. Thank you so much, and wish you all a very great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Throughout this journey, we have always been very grateful to have illustrious and inspirational speakers as orators and also as chief guests. Quality in a service or a product is not what you put into it. It is what the customer gets out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to have with us a standing example of a personality and his team who have helped connect technology and business to deliver seamless digital transformation. Mr. Prashant Subramaniam, co-founder and director of Quadra Systems, a global award-winning cloud infrastructure solutions provider, enabling business houses to connect technology and provide better business outcomes. A son of the soil of Coimbatore, after his graduation from the PSG College of Technology, he co-founded Quadra Systems with his close friend Mr. Nagaraj Ponnusamy. With humble beginnings, starting in a one-room office with a borrowed computer and a printer 20 years ago, today Quadra Systems serves more than 3,000 customers globally and has been the most awarded partner in Microsoft's global network. As the adage goes, don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. Mr. Prashant and his team of more than 750 IT professionals have helped combine innovative services with IT solutions to modernize businesses. Sir, it is indeed an honor for us to have you as our chief guest. On behalf of the management of Ganga Hospital, I kindly request Mr. Prashant Subramaniam, who is also the chairman of CII Coimbatore, to deliver the presidential address.
Good evening. Distinguished chief guests of the event, Mr. Bhaskar Bhat, respected chairman of Ganga Hospitals, Dr. Shanmuganathan, directors, Dr. Raj Sababdi and Dr. Rajshekharan, the entire Ganga family, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I thought long and hard about my topic for today, especially when the occasion is to celebrate the excellence of an institution that has grown from strength to strength, not over 1 or 2 years, but more than 4.5 decades. And I was thinking to myself, what does one do when one is sandwiched between two luminaries, Dr. Raj Sababdi and Dr. Bhaskar Bhat as speakers? I'm sure none of you are going to be envying my position. So, what does one do? So I said, okay, let's talk about what I learned rather than, there are so many senior industry leaders in the audience here who can whom I have a lot to learn from, but I thought, let me talk about something that I have learned. And I want to talk specifically about what I have learned from this institution. And so that led me to this topic. How does one become the best in the world? To become the best in any field is a very daunting task. It's not easy by any means. And when you are talking about a field like healthcare, the demands are really steep, the stakes are very high, and the pressures are huge. Even more when you want to do this from a developing nation such as India. So to build an organization of global repute, of global excellence from a developing country such as India, I think that's the first notable point I want to talk about. And rather than looking at this as a disadvantage, I think what we have to learn is how Ganga became a shining example of turning the tables, using all the cards that it was dealt with to its advantage and emerge on top in its field through extreme passion and hard work. And I want to talk a little bit about the word Ganga, right? No, you hear these words in terms, right? It's not a word, it's an emotion. In Coimbatore, Ganga actually is an emotion. It's a reassuring word. One that tells people, their darkest hours, that they'll soon become all right. It is a word that a stricken person who's been in a major accident says, take me to Ganga. They will make me all right. I will become all right. But how does one achieve this exalted status? And that's what I want to talk about. And I've summarized my understanding, and this is not necessarily comprehensive or exhaustive. This is merely my understanding of what Ganga has done exceedingly well. And these are lessons that I have imbibed from this great institution. And I believe that this is not exclusive to the domain of healthcare, no matter what field you are in. I'm sure you will find these principles applicable in your walk of life. Number one, invest in the best quality manpower. The quality of patient care obviously is directly related to how well qualified and how talented your professionals are. Recruiting, training, retaining these professionals and providing them an environment to achieve their fullest potential is something that Ganga has done exceedingly well over the years. Interact with any member of the Ganga team, be it a senior doctor or be it even a nurse under training, and you will see the same commitment to patient care and well-being. And that brings me to point number two, focus on patient satisfaction. This is just not about high quality patient satisfaction is just not about high quality medical care, which is obviously a given at Ganga, right? I think we've established that point. But importantly, is also in making sure that a patient's emotional and psychological needs are well taken care of and that they have a very positive experience when they are in hospital. This is one aspect of patient care that many don't pay attention to. And sometimes even for doctors it comes as a revelation. Only when you lie down on a table you realize what a typical patient goes through on a daily basis. And that's another aspect that Ganga has mastered. Number three, foster a culture of innovation. Now Ganga has always tried to improve and innovate. And they wanted to deliver, Dr. Ratsabali talked about democratizing, that as a goal, democratizing healthcare. Or and he still remembers what Dr. Devi Shetty said during the first oration, right? Separate affluence and quality healthcare. So the motto I've always seen at Ganga is to see how can you deliver higher quality services, deliver it better and better with every passing day, every passing year, but at lower costs. It's meant that you invest in the most advanced technologies. Delivering low cost doesn't mean you don't invest. In fact, you invest more into advanced technologies that help you deliver the best procedures and treatments. And if you just look at the number of awards or the number of papers that Ganga professionals, Ganga doctors have published, that should tell you a little bit about how important, how deeply they value this aspect. And sometimes we were having some interesting conversations on technology and how technology doesn't work when you really want to do a little while ago. But I wanted to talk about one aspect of technology because that's a field where I come from and where Ganga really innovated. So every year they have these highly sought after training sessions, live surgery sessions that are conducted, and you have delegates from tens of countries, literally 50, 60 countries, hundreds of delegates come here and attend those training sessions. When COVID struck, there was people were in a quandary. How do you get people to attend a live training session? That's a highly in-demand course. And that's where Ganga actually showed a company like Microsoft how things could be done. Because what happens with technology is you have to have someone who can dream of doing it. And to the quotation that Dr. Ratsabali put up, to Ratan Tata, think of the unachievable and then find a way to go ahead and execute it. And that's what I think Ganga did when they said, okay, we'll do a virtual live surgery. And they did it in such a successful manner that a technology giant like Microsoft actually talked about it as a case study in their global conference. So when you have a hospital that teaches a giant like Microsoft on how to use the technology, then I think you will understand the culture of innovation that Ganga showcases. Number 4, building strong partnerships. During every interaction, I've seen the kind of inspiration that the Ganga leadership has had. And one of their inspirations, I think, comes a lot from the Mayo Clinic. And that's one thing that they've done really well in terms of partnerships. A lot of focus on academics, on research, on building partnerships with other hospitals, institutions, research, building, taking up leadership positions in various international associations. And that's what has established a thought leadership that's put Ganga on top of this medical innovation. The last point I want to talk about is delivering inclusive growth. None of this can be sustained unless you deliver inclusive growth. Growth has to happen for every stakeholder, right from the smallest person to the most senior person, and it also has to be in a manner where the community is involved. And that's where Ganga has excelled. And I know we heard about projects such as Hope After Fire and Rastra a little while back. But there's a crucial difference. A lot of us are involved in CSR activities through our businesses. But is CSR just a financial contribution, or is it something beyond that? And I've always heard that CSR should be done in a way where you leverage your expertise, because that's when it moves beyond just being a financial contribution to become a multiplying factor. You multiply the impact of that investment by several fold. And that's something that Ganga has done so well. So you need to move CSR from being just a feel-good or a mandatory initiative to being something that you truly believe has the potential to change and create impact for generations. Now, why do they talk about all these things? One, like I said, I learned a lot, and I thought I would love to share this with you. But there's also another aspect that I want to talk about. And you heard a little bit about Coimbatore next. So that's a personal passion of mine, which came to shape when I took up the CII chairmanship. And there's a reason why I wanted to talk about Ganga's success story in the context of Coimbatore Next. So let me just talk about why Coimbatore Next and what Coimbatore Next is. One of the waves that you see everywhere is urbanization, right? It's relentless. World over, you see urbanization as a wave that keeps growing and growing and growing. People come to cities in search of a better life, in search of higher incomes, in search of a better standard of living. That means cities are something that need to be reinventing themselves constantly. And you also see that every few decades, cities somehow fall by the side. They are a shadow of their former selves, of their past glory. And we also realize that Coimbatore as a city, which has such a rich economic heritage, a tradition of excellence, also is starting to see a gap between what Coimbatore is capable of and what we are actually doing. And that became the genesis for this initiative called Coimbatore Next. So I'm not here to just talk about Coimbatore Next, but I'm here to say why Ganga. Because for any initiative to succeed, you need role models. You need role models who you can look up to and who can echo what we are trying to do through Coimbatore Next. Be global, going global, establishing a strong brand, being the best in whatever you do. And when you want role models that are real, that are in the city that you live in. And there are just not people whom you read about in books or watch in a documentary anywhere. But that role model has to be someone whom you can relate to in your city, right here. And that's why I know it is a personal passion of mine to see how we can inspire people using the Ganga model and how they have used this to deliver excellence in their chosen field. So that's the reason why I decided to share these insights with you. I hope you found them as useful as I know I found. And I am as eager as all of you to listen to Mr. Bhaskar Bhat. Right, so let me conclude here and then make way for him. But before I make way for Mr. Bhaskar, I want to wish the Ganga family continued success in every single initiative and endeavor that they do. And may they continue bringing smiles, on the faces of patients the world over. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
I am sure that under your leadership, Coimbatore Next will be an astounding success and will soon transform the cotton city into a vibrant one, not only in India, but also the entire world. Thank you, sir. A house is something which you can build with your hands, but an empire you can only build with your heart and soul. Our orator for today, Mr. Bhaskar Bhat, known as the man behind India's trusted watch brand, Titan, joined the group in 1983 and through his sheer hard work, commitment and passion, transformed the entire watch industry of India. Graduating from the prestigious IIT Madras in mechanical engineering, Mr. Bhat completed his postgraduate diploma in business management from IIM Ahmedabad. To honor his contributions to the society, it was fitting that he has been conferred the Distinguished Alumnus Award by both these great institutions. Beginning his career in 1978 at Godrej and Boys Manufacturing as a management trainee, Mr. Bhat joined the Tata Watch project and was associated with Titan Company for 36 years, transforming India's watch industry. Under his illustrious leadership, Titan enlarged its portfolios and extended into eyewear, accessories, fragrances, and today, as Dr. Rajaswavadi sir had mentioned, has grown into a $16 billion company, mainly due to understanding the pulse and the needs of the Indian public. Known for his clear thinking, simplicity, and crisp articulation, Mr. Bhat has helped forge the dreams of many Indians in making this decade the Indian decade. An avid trekker, Mr. Bhat is also a director in the Tata Sons Private Limited, Trent and Carrick Lane Private Limited, and chairman of Rallis India and Tata Vistara. Sir, it is indeed our privilege to have you amongst us today. Friends, as a senior statesman once said, in business, economics without ethics is a caricature. Ethics without economics is a fairy tale. Ethics and economics always should go hand in hand. Who better a person than our orator, Mr. Bhaskar Bhat, to enlighten us on delivering business responsibly, carefully, imbibing both these pillars ultimately to benefit the society. I invite Mr. Bhaskar Bhat, Director of Tata Sons, to deliver the 8th Ganga Hospital Founders Oration on responsible business, ethics with economics.
Thank you for that introduction and good evening to all of you. Mrs. Kanakavalli, Dr. J.G. Shanmuganathan, Mr. Raja Sabapati, Dr. Rajashekharan, and Prashant. A few stories I want to start with before I go into this subject. When I was listening to Prashant, I was harking back to my early days visiting Coimbatore. And one sad thought that crossed my mind was, that was like 38 years back. So suddenly the sad thought is, you mean I'm that old? You know? So why I say this is, the first product that Titan put in the market was a watch. Much later came jewelry and eyewear and all that. And why it relates to your next, Coimbatore Next, Prashant, it's something you have to probably think about. We've had a lot of discussions already. Coimbatore was a favorite city for us in the watch business for one metric, which is when we started the watch business, you know that we did quartz watches and all that, HMT was our competitor. There's one metric which defines the potential in a watch business. It was called sales per thousand population. So when we assess the total market in India, we realize that at that time, in that year, 86, India was producing and selling roughly 12 per 1,000 population. And the global average was 100. So, you know, it is like how Pepsi decides the potential for Pepsi in India is based on how many liters of cola is drunk in a country, and we are always way behind USA and all that. In the first 3 years itself, Coimbatore was racing well ahead of the India average, and to us that Coimbatore became the city to showcase to every other Indian city, saying, look, the work that has been done in Coimbatore. So the only other city that came close to Coimbatore, I'm not talking about Bombay, Delhi, close to Coimbatore was Chandigarh. Today, I must tell you, the other cities have overtaken Coimbatore. Okay, so something to think about, not for watches, but I'm just telling you that 38 years back, Coimbatore was somewhere in my assessment, and now it is somewhere else. And this is actually the story of India, not just about Coimbatore. The differential acceleration of various states and cities is where India has actually gone today. Now, the subject that I have chosen is not something I'm familiar with. I have, grown up as a marketing person, and that branding continues for the rest of your life. Even though I spent more time as a CEO and MD of the company than I spent in marketing. Even after I retire, and 3 years after I retire, people come and say, sir, give us some marketing ideas. I said, I gave up that profession some 20 years back. Did you know that I was MD when I retired? No, sir, but you built so many brands. So this is a very difficult subject for me to speak about. But I chose because it's difficult. So I want to not sound like it is a sermon, because this is a very heavy subject. And I don't want to make it simple. I want to end this oration. I think an oration to me is a very important event in an institution. When I see the people who have preceded me, 6 out of those 8 people I look up to. Forget about, being my peers. Whether it's Subrata Bakshi, and I'll give you an example of Subrata Bakshi, how much I respect him. Much like what I spoke about SDG. Or Ramchandra Guha, or RG, Mr. RG. Why I'm chairman of Vistara? Because RG just called me and said, look, we need you to join this board. I said, look, there must be a process. He said, no, you just come. So he was like boss. So these were people, or Mr. Venu Srinivasan. So I want to leave you, provoke you with some thoughts. You may disagree with me, but that's okay. I won't be disagreeable, that's all. I'll try to be nice about the points which I am going to provoke you with. So ethics with economics is not paradoxical. Okay, I think when you think of Tata, I think by and large people think we run businesses ethically. And so ethics and economics go hand in hand. But I'm trying to go beyond that. I hark back to JRD's very, very telling JRD Tata, the Bharat Ratna JRD Tata, who said if we had done some of the things that some other groups have done, we would have been twice as big as we are today. But we didn't, and I would not have it any other way. This statement is something that, most of us in the group live by. And in this presentation, I want to establish to you that even in a subject which is a bit soft but soft from a institutional point of view, but very hard to follow. Inspiration alone is not enough. An inspiring statement like this emotionally charges you, but the how, when it comes to a salesperson in the field in Coimbatore or in Gorakhpur or in Guwahati, when he is faced with an ethical dilemma, he is not going to remember JRD's Tata's statement. He is going to say, I have a target. If I don't complete the target, my boss is going to shout at me. Or if the service person, if he's servicing a watch, and there is a threatening customer standing in front of him saying that if you, and it happened in many places. In Bihar, the guy will put a knife in first on the table and then put the watch to be repaired. He doesn't say anything. He just, so what does he do? Does he say ethically, this is out of guarantee, I am not going to repair? You can't remember JRD Tata at that time. You have to have processes. So I'm just going to talk to you about that. But first, let me just, why I am challenged on this subject is, in an institution like this, to talk about ethics is, I think, like carrying coal to Newcastle. In your vision statement, you have medical ethics and the state-of-the-art technology. Ethics is there. Actually, it is at the center of this slide, ethics. So it seems to be at the heart of your organization. To showcase to the world the best in patient care, surgical expertise, academics, medical ethics, and state-of-the-art technology. To be a center which will be a pride of our country. So that inspired me, and that's how I chose the topic, sir. Ethics and economics, responsible business. And I know only about business, I don't know about healthcare. But then I asked him, what is the crowd going to be like? Then he said, there'll be doctors, there'll be industrialists, there will be, and I realize now, not only industrialists, there are educationists here, and very wise men and women. So it shall not be a sermon. It shall not be simply a download of information which I can do. I can speak for the next 3 hours just downloading information from you. So I want to start with one statement which I have believed, we have all believed in the group, that integrity in business is purposeful. We all know it's purposeful because, like JRD said, that is very at the heart of how we do things, the way we do things, not what we do. Not what we do, the how of the what we do. It's purposeful. But strategic is something which I have realized by analyzing several businesses, that there is a strategic competitive advantage in being ethical and putting integrity right on top of a company's values. I'll share something with you. But before that, maybe it's not too visible, I want to establish to all of you, sorry?
Next slide.
Yeah, I know. No, whether that can be red. Red and blue is a bad combination. But integrity and ethics, very simplistically put, in all institutions, people do confuse it with the several statements I'm going to make. But I'm going to say integrity is not only about non-compliance of the law of the land. It's not only about dishonesty. It is not only about bribing or gifting or accepting a bribe or giving a gift. It is not only about cheating. It is not only about plagiarizing, which in the world of music, arts, and research, plagiarism is a very big crime. It's not only about corruption. Sometimes in organizations, unfairness is also treated as ethical misconduct. That is, If a boss is shouting at the subordinate immediately goes to the audit committee and says, you know, I have been unfairly treated because I didn't get promotion. And they think it's an ethical misconduct. People get confused. But my point is, all of these belong to the same category, and there are many more like this. But it's not only about that, is the point I want to leave with you. I'll come back to this thought at the end of my presentation, the why of it, why we feel so. First, I'll present to you the business case. The point about the strategic point I told you about, purposefulness, all of us, in the heart of our heart, we feel if we are clean, straight, ethical, and have integrity, it's good. We feel good. But the business case. Globally, research that has been done by a global company called Ethisphere over a 7-year, 2017 to 2022, 5 years, and this is the latest, between large cap ethics, a large cap index, this is index as in the BSE index or the, this is not BSE, this is global index of share prices of market cap, and ethics index, there is a premium of 24.6%, nearly 25%. The market gives you a premium because your ethical standards in the company are high. That is good enough reason to be ethical. Because 24.6% of $16 billion, which is the market cap of Titan, is one hell of a lot, $4 billion. $4 billion, if it has been added to your market cap, to be ethical, it doesn't even cost you $500 million. So isn't it a great return for money invested, time invested, effort invested? So that's the business case. The second, strong ethics is good business. Amongst the top 10 most valuable Indian brands in 2022, and this has been, the number one place has never gone to anybody other than the Tata Group. Okay. Number two has gone to various companies, but number one, Tata has remained forever in the last several years. So that one with the arrow this way means we are at the same place. LIC's red down means they dropped. So this is the second reason why when you are in that position, it's not just a business case, it is a preference among customers to buy Tata products, to work for Tata companies, of a certain kind of person you attract. We have 935,000 talented and motivated employees in more than 100 countries across 6 continents. We are the largest employers in the private sector in India, out of India. And just to give you the ethical behavior of the group is not just limited to the group. I am giving you here an example of Tata Steel. Tata Steel, in the Global Parity Alliance as a founding member, it has again broken industry benchmarks. Tata Steel is one of the Tata's flagship companies. Amongst the world's most ethical companies for 2021 in the same survey. So it's not just that the ethics are sitting in some corporate office of the Tata Group in Tata Sons and all that. Ethics has to be practiced at the micro levels, whether it's Tata Steel or TCS or Titan or Tata Chemicals. It is a accumulation of all the practices which companies follow that makes the group. So how does the group achieve it? This is something which is something I want to share with all of you and Ganga Hospital and everyone else who's here, which is it's not enough, as I said, just to make inspiring statements standing at the pulpit and saying, everybody must be honest and ethical and so on. How do you achieve it? How do you ensure continuous behavior of every one of your employees? So the group has an extraordinary powerful structure and process to ensure that. In fact, I must tell you that the person who's heading that is a classmate of Dr. Rajashekharan here. His name is S. Padmanabhan, Paddy we call him, and he's the one who champions this whole thing in the group at Bombay. I don't want to go through the details of this, but just to tell you that there is a framework which has got 4 verticals, which is the leadership of business ethics has the leadership's ethical qualities, compliance structure, communication and training, and measurement of effectiveness. This is something which you do in business day in and day out, in every process, whether it's manufacturing, what kind of processes have you put in, what is the structure you've got, and do you measure and use the feedback to improve. We put that into the ethical framework as well. At the bottom of that, supporting all that, is the Tata Code of Conduct and the core values. Let me tell you what this means. On day one, when an employee joins, he's asked to sign the Code of Conduct. It's a huge document. Now, he has joined and he's saying, I'm happy to join the Tata company. But how do you make it come alive to him? It's through this structure that is there and is explained to him. But beyond that, there are policies on the right, and these all companies I'm sure have, but I'm just wanting to tell you that whistleblower policy, gifts and hospitality policy. So when I talked about that salesperson or the purchase man or the service person, there is a policy on gifting and hospitality. So he knows through one, the policy, the other, most companies have showcased these policies through entertaining pieces of either video, skit, or how do you communicate to somebody who's joined from Dharmapuri, who knows only Tamil. Next morning you must become Tata. You have to communicate in his language, her language, through people who she can connect with, not some MD talking about ethics, So these are the practices. So gifting and hospitality. Let me give you one example which I talked about this morning. In India, not accepting a gift when it is given is not good. Multinational companies on the stage when the MD is invited and the person is giving out of affection. The guy says, no, our policy doesn't allow us to accept a gift. The gifter feels a little let down. So we created in the group saying, yes, accept a gift, but there is an administrative process of returning the gift when you go back, and there is an administrative process of that gift being auctioned in the company or in the group every month, and that the proceeds of that auction will go to a charity. Then what happens is there is a positive energy created. Okay, I'm not driven by the policy saying don't accept a gift. A letter goes back to that company saying thank you, your gift has been returned and it has been utilized for a good cause. Even the gifter feels okay, there is a good cause for which it has been given. So these are, I'm not saying they are unique, but these are some of the practices. And then anti-bribery, prevention of sexual harassment, anti-money laundering, conflict of interest, procedure, etc. Many of these are now regulated because, the corporate governance regulates many of these things, including the whistleblower, which is a must as a policy. The custodian of the Tata Code of Conduct is Tata Sons, and it is the group companies which execute on all those policies and the structure. Just to give you for example, in Titan, there are about 30 people who are assigned, they are called ethics officers. They have their day job. They may be selling watches or jewelry, or they may be in the manufacturing plant, but they have a particular job about ethics for which they are trained. They are the eyes and ears of the company. Anybody who feels that there is wrong has been done, they will go to that ethics officer to say, look, I think something is wrong here and you should investigate. So it's only when you build an organization which makes people comfortable to report unethical conduct. So we keep telling people, ethics is not just remaining quiet saying, I am ethical, I don't do wrong. We tell them, if you see wrong being done, it's your job to report. It's your job to report, and it's the responsibility of the company to protect you. To protect you from because if your boss is doing wrong, people are all afraid. Sexual harassment is a very big problem in India. When a superior subordinate relationship is there, the girl is very, very scared because her job is very important for her. So how do you create an environment which makes it comfortable for her to report malfeasance? This is a subject nobody talks about, but it is important for us to, understand that this is still a challenge. Even in Titan, we still get sexual harassment cases, and you have to mete out the punishments as they are required. So now I'll come to the last part of my oration, which is we've talked about the business case of ethics, which is the premium of 25%. I've shared with you that there is a method to the madness of ensuring ethical conduct across a company. It is an unending journey. It will never stop. The more control, supervision you have, the smarter the people, because greed is a bottomless pit, It is a bottomless pit, and people do think that they can outsmart the system. But let me talk a little bit about beyond business. 3 points I want to share with you, which now is going to really provoke you, not negatively, but just to make you think. There is the idea of the inverted pyramid of responsibility, which I want to share with you, which is walking the talk. Individual ethics at a personal level, separating individual ethics from corporate ethics. We have to understand, especially as we grow in leadership, the decision to separate individual ethics and to understand that individual ethics is beyond. Let me give you an example, and this is not to talk about me and my colleagues. For 20 years, our policy said, and it continues to say so, but that everybody beyond GM and above, including SDG, can travel business class within India and abroad. But for 20 years, and this started when we were $100 million, and there was a challenge of cost and all that. By choice, each individual leader chose to travel either first class AC or economy class. Nobody told them. The policy, anybody would have signed, no accounts department would have stopped this bill, but they chose. Now, is this ethics? Is this responsible conduct? I don't know, but they chose. So, individual ethics separate from corporate ethics is an important idea I want to share with you. And then the last one, which is what I have been kind of espousing to all companies, especially for the young. The young think this ethics thing is my grandfather talks about it, my father talks about it. It's one of the most boring subjects, they always say, be honest, be good, don't, give bribe. What is such a boring subject, So how to make ethics cool, how to make it cool has been a challenge, and I think the young are beginning to listen, and the young are beginning to say, yeah, this is a smarter way of doing things. So here I come. Inverted pyramid of responsibility to begin with. I think on this subject, see, on every other subject, which is when you have to make an investment and set up a plant in Coimbatore, the pyramid of responsibility, top to bottom, the guy at the front line has to execute, and you just say plant has to be built and he'll build it. Whether you want to launch a new brand, the managing director signs off, the board signs off, managing director begins to execute. The power flows from the top to the bottom. The people at the bottom execute. In ethics, it is the reverse. In my dictionary, it is the other way around, which is that in ethical conduct, I believe the topmost man is reporting to the rest of the organization. His conduct, his behavior is what determines. So literally you are saying, look, do you think I am ethical? Not saying it, but so I'll give you the example of this. When all my subordinates, the leadership team, started flying economy class, and it was not for 6 months or 3 months, for 20 years. The rest of the organization said, my God, I can't surely be entitled, in any way. So in my own way, can I do? So when the whole organization, sees this, that is the inverted pyramid I'm talking about. And it went on to many, many things. The entitlement of a 60 lakh car versus choosing a 30 lakh car. Those are individual, but the inverted sense of responsibility. So talking the talk is not alone enough. Walking the talk is what inverted sense of responsibility is all about. Both are important. I just want to give you 2 examples, which is leading by example, which is the Tata Nano. Why I bring this example is Tata Nano was not such a big business success. But Tata Nano, when Mr. Tata announced his dream of a 1 lakh rupee car, the inverted pyramid, I think, began to work, because I know for sure, because I'm with that company, but I was not, in terms of board and all that, including Bosch and so on, they started working hard at saying, how can we make our supplies to Tatas that much lower in terms of cost without compromising on quality. Every supplier aligned himself saying, we want to make this happen. Because Mr. Tata has talked about it, and he's willing to walk with us, and we will now participate in that journey. What happened to Nano is a separate story. But it was something I felt that it's not just in ethics, it is about integrity. It was not just a hollow statement he made. He had thought about how it could happen, but a lot of the rest was fuzzy. So the whole ecosystem began to work with Tata Motors to ensure. The non-success is another matter. The second example I want to explain, this happened many years ago, which is about disclosure, transparency, and being bold. We had a rogue managing director in an earlier company called Tata Finance. I think you're aware of it. A rogue MD, it says that. I use the word which is. Now, it was a fiasco. A lot of common people's money got stuck and so on. So the group did two things very clearly, and it was still Mr. Ratan Tata's time. One was, don't spare the rogue, and Pense we went after, and he was jailed and so on. But at the same time, we told every depositor, your money will go nowhere. We will ensure that this will all be returned. It took us a little while, but we returned all the money. The same thing happened when we signed and paid Docomo. This was a few years back when we paid off Docomo, because it was a promise. And when Mr. Tata, when Nano was launched, I remember the statement he made, which is when in the Delhi auto fair, he said, a promise is a promise. So actually we lived up to that promise. Individual ethics is about boss-subordinate relationships, where it is, when you recruit a person. Many years ago, when I was in Godrej, my boss used to say, be careful, you are in a situation of reasonable power because you are a management trainee and you'll have a lot of sales people reporting to you. When you recruit, think 10 times before recruiting a guy. But when you sack, think 100 times. Why, I asked him. He said, look, when you're selecting a person in India, you're not just selecting the person, you're actually selecting a whole family. And when you ask a guy to leave on the basis of some suspicion, and poor performance is one thing, think about 100 times, because he may not have understood if he has cheated on the bill, 20 rupees he has made 200 rupees. First you have to tell him that this is wrong. But many companies take pride in the fact that 1 rupee you make a mistake, you're sacked. Yeah, sure. The rule says you have to sack. But when you're sacking a whole family. And you are actually, so that individual ethics, and I got support on this from the government of Tamil Nadu. The bureaucrats who sat on our board, I'm not talking about individual cases, they used to say, look, even in government, we actually apply judgment. We apply judgment to ethical misconduct, and our audit committee chair used to say, you should explore why the person did that, try to correct, and this is a very important philosophy, especially in Sweden and so on. They actually want criminals to come back into society, not just be abandoned, because reformation is a very important idea in the Western world. So, to be just, fair and kind, but at the same time, the higher you go, the harder you fall, is also something you have to practice. The frontline salesperson in the shop, in the Tanishq store doing something wrong is far less of an impact than somebody at a senior level. The higher you go, the harder you fall. For the same amount of money, 1,000 rupees, but if a senior person does this, he is being looked up to, that inverted pyramid, So, that principle. So, I just want to give you one example about what the Tata Group did. This is not a known company in the group at all. Okay, how individual ethics and empowerment and driven by human values, people have taken decisions. On October 18, 2020, a cry was heard on Sagar Shakti, Tata NYK. It's a logistics company, shipping company in the straits near Indonesia, man overboard. And that kind of thing strikes fears in the hearts of sailors, as it is a race against time to save human life. The 6 seamen were adrift on a makeshift raft for 48 hours as no ship came to their rescue. Sagar Shakti responded to the SOS and rescued these seamen following maritime protocols. The ship had to deviate from its course and lost valuable commercial few days to reach its destination. Now, did he do wrong, the captain of that ship? Yeah, he could have been pulled up saying, lakhs of rupees you lost in trying to rescue something. But those guys took the decision on their own. And now there is no rule book which tells you this. It is individual, you have to practice. The last bit, which is the smart way to be. And this is, I'm not saying just for the young. For 35, 40 years, especially after I became the head of the company, you have to go to Delhi very often because of, some new regulation. And we were always in Tanishq, we were always the outsider because the rest of the industry, had some practices which are very sharp and we were not doing those practices. So every time we'd go, when you are seen as ethical and when you have behaved, especially, we are blessed to be ethical because in the jewelry industry, if the normal practice is to cheat on the gold caratage, but we didn't cheat. So the world came to know that we don't cheat on the caratage. The cost of cheating, if even one case of cheating happens anywhere, is very high. Reputational risk is very high. But the advantage, especially in the powers that be, is a calling card that goes into any secretary, any minister, when it says Tata or in that case Titan, a Tata enterprise, the discussion is completely different. Okay, what do you want done? So life becomes easier. There is no expectation of any sort. Work gets done faster. And more importantly, the respect and regard. Even that peon, acha aap Tata wale hain, jaiye sir, andar jaiye. There is no chai pani ka paisa also, that guy. I'm sorry, I'm speaking in Hindi, but even that is not expected. A certain kind of person joins the group, and therefore the coolness I'm talking about is life becomes easier. You don't have to wonder that, you don't have to suspect, you don't have to wonder. It's a climate which is very comfortable for men and women, youngsters, that at least on this count, I don't have to look behind my back to see whether somebody is misbehaving. It is a very big advantage compared to other companies which don't have that culture. So I keep talking about this, saying you want a good night's sleep, join a Tata company. But don't sleep during the job. That's all. I'll just deal with two cases. And one I spoke about in the morning. The other is Taj. I think all of you know this on conduct. And this is not just ethical conduct. When a new joinee joins the Taj, Indian Hotels that is, they are told guest is God. And then they have process, they have a process. This morning I was talking about how they achieve warmth of service. They have discovered that there are 17 points, they are called moments of truth. When a customer walks in to a Taj hotel, there are 17 interactions which have been captured, and the Taj strives to excel at each point of moment of truth. One moment of truth, for example, is when you're checking in, what is the experience of check-in? Or when you're coming into the hotel, what is the experience of the concierge, picking up your bag and so on and so forth. So each of those they have analyzed and they're continuously trying to improve. It doesn't happen just by saying guest is God, it has to happen through a continuous practice. On 26/11/2008, all these years, 100 years of working like that, came alive, okay? There are people who I know who were there. I was at the Oberoi that evening. Thankfully, I left before the terrorists came. But and I've spoken to some of those Taj boys and girls. They didn't even think twice. They didn't even think that, you know, they were coming between a terrorist and his bullet or the guest, you know. There was a very big Unilever board which had been locked up in the night in one of the rooms. And two of them were on my board also, Nihal Kaviratne and Irina Vittal. And they said this girl who was in the room, she was at the door. We were, you know, on the ground, you know, crouching, etc. She just wouldn't let go. No SOP, no book said that, you know, you're not allowed to run away from a terrorist. She just stood there. Case after case, a housekeeper who just daily simply cleans your room. Or from that Chinese Golden Dragon, I think is a restaurant, people who got killed. The first guy was the person who protected the guests. And then they let the guests out of the back door and so on. So I think that is the most outstanding. It's become, of course, a Harvard case and all that. But to me, this is, you know, it's not written in any KRA that, you know, you will, when a terrorist comes, you will stand between the guest and the terrorist. Tanishq is a less heavy example, but on demonetization day, I spoke about it this morning, even the smallest store in the remotest corner of the country, at 11:59 closed the billing. There was temptation because the frontline girl knew that the values of this company will not permit me to do that, and there was no phone call from C.K. Venkat, who was heading jewelry at that time, or Bhaskar Bhat saying, no, 11:59 you'll close the billing. There was just a communication which went out and stand by the code of conduct of Titan and Tata Group. There was a lot of temptation. People came with 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 1 crore cash. Please accept, you know, till yesterday you were calling me every day and saying, come to the store, there are new products. And at 11:59 you're saying, don't come, go away, I don't want you. It was very difficult for them to say no. Now my point is, it's only over a long period of time when the leadership has practiced and practiced and practiced and not just preached good conduct, that you can achieve that. Not a single case of overstepping was discovered. The next day, people were all over, and there are some South Indian jewelers who were caught red-handed, you know, all that happened. But to some extent, I always say those moments, there is a blessing from somewhere. Even if one person had, because we had 354 stores at that time. How are you going to monitor 354 stores at 11 in the night and say, you know, have you closed the billing? That was the demonetization story. So, I conclude, I go back to that slide. Integrity and ethics is more than, so I suppose I didn't talk about non-compliance, I didn't talk about dishonesty, I didn't talk about bribery, cheating, plagiarism, corruption, and yeah, maybe unfairness I did speak about. To me, it is all of this and more. I think integrity is purposeful and strategic because it feeds into the greatest asset in the world of business. We think assets are land and machines and, you know, the IPR that you hold, etc. Yes, they are important. But to me, more than anything, it is one big word, which is trust. Trust is what in the group, we call ourselves leadership with trust. And when trust is built inside an institution, through many, many practices and not just ethical conduct, transparency, communication, two-way communication, and all that, the employee begins to trust. And the trust is two-way. One is trusting the employee that he will do good, but training him to do good, and the employee trusting the company that if I do good, company will do me good. That trust takes a long time to build, and to me, integrity and ethics is not just that much. It feeds into a big asset, which is trust. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.